Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. ¿Se me escucha?
Hello, good morning, welcome. Can you hear me? So thanks to Fundación Telefónica, my name is Pablo Gonzalo. I'm the manager of cultural innovation and critical thinking of the foundation. And besides of saying thank you for being here at our space, I would like to apologize for this delay because our guest has come by plane. And there was a small delay, and that together with the rain, etc. This is why we're starting with these 10 minutes delay. But the important thing is that he's here with us, and we have his wisdom, and we'll be able to enjoy this event very much. As you all know, at Fundación Telefónica, we work quite usually with the intersection between culture, technology, and ethics. And we work on, trying to shed light on the way that this digital transformation means, but also about the question of where do we want this digital transformation to take us to? Because sometimes it seems that things are unavoidable and that technology has its own life, but we think that it's not the case. We think that technology has to be governed by people. And about this and about many other things we are going to speak about today with Paolo Benanti. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, Paolo. He is a priest, he's a Franciscan priest, he is a theologist, and he's an expert in digital ethics. Now you will know the way he thinks much more, and he has reflected a lot about the intersection between technology, AI, and technology, and the concept of human dignity. And I think that it's important, at least to me, it is very relevant, the message that he has to convey. Because he's not only a critical voice, about things related to technology, but he's a voice that, at least in my opinion, is trying to think about how this technology, as I was saying, has to be useful for human beings, and I think that that's quite relevant. The event is held because of the publication of his new book that is called The Collapse of Babel, that has been edited by Ediciones Encuentro. Thanks for their collaboration. And I think that the author will be signing his book later on. And for this dialogue, we have an exceptional person. It's Tiscar Lara. He is the Deputy Director of Transformation and Digital Communication of Cervantes Institute. I would like to say thank you for being with us. And without further ado, we'll start with the talk. Thank you very much.
Pues muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. We are happy to share this afternoon with you, and especially with Paolo Benanti. He's one of the experts, the most interesting experts, who has been facing the relationship between technology, digital technologies, in how we motivate these and how they modify each other, and especially about the evolution of in the last few years, in the last decades in this century. Paolo is a Franciscan priest. He is also a consultant in AI in the Vatican and also in the United Nations, and a theology professor. He has several works about these topics that are so interesting for us and that bring us here today so we can get to know more about his last book, El Colapso de Babel, the end of the internet dream. Is, in a way, and this is something I want to add personally, this is something that helps us understand how we have experienced these years and this experience of the internet, which is ours, of course, and why we have, at least myself, That's the way I feel this. Why we've moved from being excited and motivated about this culture that was being built to something else, and why we feel some kind of failure, or I don't want to use a too negative word, but we feel a little bit upset about this evolution, and we think that this may have to do with us because maybe we were younger, we used to be younger, we were more idealistic, so I have that feeling of nostalgia in a way. And this is why, or with what Paolo is helping us with. So we can get to know the book better. I would ask Paolo this first question. What dream of the internet are we talking about? And why? What is the reason for that collapse? So, because from the title of the book, we already know what is the position that you're taking and what you want to face, what you want to tackle with the book. Why? What is the reason for that collapse?
First of all, it's my pleasure to be here again, to be here also with the editor of Encuentro Madrid, here in this space Telefonica. That is a really special space that allow me to resonate with a lot of the modernity now. I'm sorry, I'm not so good in Spanish, and I'm pretty sure that you prefer a better English than an Itagnolo. That is not really nice. That is simple Italiano plus S, so it's better English. Well, let's look at what happened in these 20 years of this century to answer your question. Last century we know the age 20s, the age 20s with from Liberty, the Belle Époque, and things like that. Are we living something that is really near? Well, let's see what happened. We finished the first decades of this century, 2011. With the Arabic Spring. With the Arabic Spring, we start to dream. Then thanks to a mobile phone and an app on the mobile phone, people can share their thoughts, can simply share what they feel, can express themselves, and the Western value about democracy and about, what we are used to call Western in itself can spread around the world. The Arabic Spring tells to us that thanks to the digital, we can have just one language, that is the language of the human values, and those human values can spread around the world. But 10 years later, 2021, if you go to Washington, you can see a lot of people protesting, the riots of Capitol Hill, accusing someone to steal the election, when actually no one steals the election. It's simple, the majority. And it happens thanks to the same app that produced the dream of Arabic Spring. Well, with Arabic Spring, we are building the tower. With 2021, we see what remains of the tower. Something went wrong. What? Well, is the content of the book, but actually, let me give you one idea. 2012, Facebook is not anymore a company owned by a man, but become a company listed in the stock option. And after Facebook entered in the stock option, 6 months later, the value of the stock fall down. And to stop the fall down of the value, Zuckerberg has to show how much was the value of the data of the user contained in Facebook. And the nature of the company changed from being a platform of sharing stuff, images, and everything else to something that has to monetize the users and the preference of the users. Probably some of you remember the scandal of Cambridge Analytica. And Cambridge Analytica was a company that simply used this idea that Facebook make for sale the interaction with the data of the users, and they start to profile it to obtain a changing of the public opinion in the democracy. At the end of the second decade, 2017, Foreign Affairs, that actually is one of the most important diplomacy international journal, published a piece that introduced a new word to describe international relationship. You know, traditionally we know the hard power. Well, you are the Ukraine, I'm Russia, I'm bringing you 40 kilometers of tanks near your border. Probably you start to think that relationship has to change, hard power. Well, I'm United States, I start to let you students to come in my country, give to them an education, they can discover that they like the United States value, and they come back and we are friends, soft power. And what is hard power? Is the using of social media to damage someone else's democratic system. So Cambridge Analytica that is an English company that make for sale that is an example of sharp power. So especially non-democratic country can use the open freedom speech on another country and use the digital social space to simply produce a friction inside society and damaging this kind of democratic on public speech and public opinion mechanism. And so yes, the tower is collapsed, something is not going well, something that we dreamed was used to give the freedom to everyone is showing the dark face, is showing that we need to, or better, probably we miss an important point, that was the regulation of social digital space. And now we are paying the consequence for that, especially as in Europe. And we see in the social change that are happening in Europe and in the political election in Europe, that there is a lot of effect induced by such kind of algorithm in the shaping of the public opinion.
¿Hay algún punto en toda esta...
Is there anything in all these facts, in all these movements that derived in this collapse and that explain the second decade of the 21st century, is there a point where it's not possible to go back anymore? Any moment that you can identify as really relevant, as a catalyzer that completely changed the rules and took us in a specific direction, if you had to pick one?
Well, you know, I make a conference 2 years ago in Geneva, and the nephew of Oppenheimer, the physician that made the bomb, was there, and he showed me the diary of Oppenheimer, the journal of Oppenheimer. And there was one passage in which Oppenheimer said, you know, the physicists lose their innocence because they discovered this and like it. Well, I think that the same things happen with the social media when, you know, the capital, it's not a criticism to the capital, but when the capital discovered that was not a game, but was a new market, was something that you can squeeze to have the maximum return. And part of that happened thanks to a man that today is really famous. When I wrote the book, was not so famous. That is Peter Thiel, that is really near to Donald Trump now. That was the big venture capital in the Silicon Valley. And Peter Thiel was one of the brilliant student of Stanford. And in Stanford, he makes some class with René Girard. René Girard is a French philosopher that at one point has to leave from Europe and go to Stanford, and he started to study literature and discover inside literature that there is a mechanism that describes the desire of the human beings. And he calls such kind of things mimetic theory. What does it mean? To say that in simple words, we don't desire object. We desire to be like people that has such kind of object. So you don't desire such kind of car. You are desiring to be like the man or the woman that is driving that car. You are not desiring such perfume, you are not desiring such watch and things like that. But what happened? Then when you have the things that you desire, the admiration to the other become a sort of hate, and you need to kill him. René Girard, that was Christian but not Catholic in the traditional sense, make a clear example reading Cain and Abel, where the desire of Cain and Abel become something that allow one to kill the others. Well, when Peter Thiel followed such kind of lecture, he was enlightened. He said, wow, I hear someone that explained to myself the deepest working of what I feel inside my heart. And it was not only one of the brilliant scholar of Girard, he was really a friend of him. Just to give you a sense of that, in 2018, when Girard passed away, the homily at the funeral was made by Peter Thiel. And what makes Peter Thiel, because in United States, when you make a degree, you can have the major and the minor. He's make philosophy as a major, and minor was economy. And so he made to apply such kind of models to investment. The first company in which he invested was PayPal. And he would like to avoid the mimetic mechanism inside PayPal, to avoid that people start to fight inside the company. And so what was his idea? Well, I need someone that can change from one duty to another duty without any problem. Let's hire former military. They are used to obey and shift in duties without any problems. And that's PayPal. When he saw Facebook and saw something like the like button, wow, the like button is the ignition of the mimetic theory. And he decided 2012, 2013 to simply amplify the work of like button to maximize the money. Well, is where they lose their innocence. They start to like the effect of that and the amplification on the cohort, on the demography, and in the way in which the platform can simply shape the reality. And that is really interesting. It's a not turning back company. But, it's contradictory, but no one has to live without contradiction, that at one point, Peter Thiel, 2017, 2018, according to the Girard theory, was starting to smell that things has to go into the distraction for Facebook. He came out from Facebook and found another company that in his mentality should fix the distraction induced by Facebook, Palantir. In which way? Controlling everyone everywhere through the states, to a digital states. And this is really interesting, not only because it's a turning point, but also because maybe we are thinking that we are talking about technology. But like the director said to us, it's not a matter of technology, it's a matter of society and culture. So the huge transformation of our time, digital social network, are the sum not of a technological revolution, but by a philosophical idea. And that's something that probably can surprise you, because we can think that it's a matter of smartphone, digital, and algorithms, but much more deeper than that. It's a matter of the vision of the world, of belief and understanding on what does it mean to be human.
¿Y cuáles serían esos elementos que...
And what would be those elements that you mean for that motivation, for that philosophy? Because in the book you talk about as a prayer, there's like some beliefs, as a creed, like a system of ideas which are the engine for making some kind of decisions that are key and that end up setting up this new internet that we've had after the collapse of that previous dream. And that creed has some elements beyond that mimetic philosophy that you were mentioning. There are some specific elements that in a way can explain why some people who are very powerful in the field of technology they are going towards a specific goal. What would be those elements in your opinion?
Well, we have to avoid a temptation, and the temptation is the temptation of oversimplification. Yes, of course, we are talking of a world, Silicon Valley, in which we can think an investment of $60 billion, and it's not a problem. If we look at the last financial law made in Italy, and it was a good law, it's a law by $10 billion. So single company can invest something that is 3 times how much a European country can invest. And we have people that are super rich. You know, Elon Musk was appointed yesterday with a paycheck of $1 trillion to remain head of Tesla. It's numbers that are outside of every, figure of normality. So we shouldn't believe that everything is super simple or everything is one direction. But things are also connected. And are connected, for example, in a way that we start to see before when I talk about PayPal. Because, PayPal is something that arose as the first company during the dot-com crisis. And with the dot-com crisis, there is the needing for something new. The people that found PayPal are the people that built such kind of world. In PayPal, there was Elon Musk. In PayPal, there was Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. In PayPal, there was the 2 founders of YouTube. In PayPal, there is Kevin Scott, that is the chief technology officer of Microsoft. So in PayPal, this group of young men that become millionaire, simple share one idea, that is the core idea, break things and move fast. So the idea was to use technology, if I can say it, to take a generational revenge. A lot of time you heard about X generation, like the denied generation, the suppressed generation. But actually, all the Silicon Valley is the fruit of X generation. And if the boomer known augmentation of lifespan, and they don't leave space in the traditional society, what the X generation in the Silicon Valley was start to make is to demolish the traditional society and to bring a new society in the digital for themselves. There is no space for us for banking? Welcome. We will do PayPal. There is no space for us in television? We'll do YouTube. There is no space for us in newspaper? Welcome to Facebook and things like that. Welcome to LinkedIn. So we have to read globally this phenomena that are rising from the Silicon Valley like a new 68, but of the next generation, of the X generation. This time is not happening with protest in the square and in the street or in the university, but it is happening as a demolishing way to make company and to allow this company to destroy the traditional way to do things. It's not anymore possible to have a cab. You need to use an app. You have to use Uber, or you have to use FreeNow. I see a lot of FreeNow advertised coming here. And this new way to make this kind of digital company is really generational. And they still meet all together, play with water pistol, make barbecue, go with go-kart. So it's a milieu. It's an environment that allows them to grow with the desire to become in some way the leader of this new world. Well, the concentration of power that now they show, it's a sign of success. The problem, my fear, the end of the book, is about the fact that now from traditional industry they are moving to democracy, and I don't want to like, or I don't like to see a transformation of democracy in something else like we see the transformation of the market with Amazon, or the transformation of banking with PayPal, or the transformation of television with YouTube. Well, there is something more basic, fundamental, the core value that cannot be simply destroyed by such form of innovation that is under the slogan, move fast and break things.
¿Y hay algún resquicio?
And there's something of this as well left in that creed that we may have from that first decade, from that system, that belief system, that California of the hippies, with collaboration, with free love, with the digital culture, what we had back then. Is there anything left from all that? And to continue with a metaphor, is there anything that can make us think in a phoenix bird? Anything that we can use to rebuild, or that we can use to balance all that?
Well, what we are seeing in this third decades of the century, and that we simply miss an opportunity, and was the opportunity to regulate such kind of phenomena. And the President Macron said that it's not acceptable that we leave the public debate space to private company that neither belong to Europe. Well, we didn't regulate it for a lot of reasons. First, because we didn't see that such kind of things was coming. Second, because we didn't realize that the market was going in. Third, because when we understand that there was also political means, was too late. And the 20s was finished. Don't forget that at the end of the 20s, we have the pandemic. And the pandemic produced a global, huge, big migration of population in the digital space. I can give you a personal example just to give you something. My parents was born in 1945. One 45, the other 47. And they was really, let me say in that way, resistant to digital means. But during the pandemic, the desire to talk with the nephew was so strong that my mother learned how to make a video call with WhatsApp. So what does it mean? That we have a huge section of population that without the pandemic remain outside of the digital space, that simply jump in the digital space. And this is now why in a so short period, the digital means are so powerful. What remained of the dream when we start? Well, that everything was free. And everything was free when we have internet. I don't know how many of you know the first internet, because everyone can build what you want. You can build your web server, you can build your system. But at one point, when Web 2.0 happened, the quality of what we can build in internet skyrocketed. We can have blog, we can have Gmail, we can have such kind of system. But it's not something that any one of us can build. I make the first web page of my monastery in Assisi it was 2005, something like that. I put a computer in a corner with a big panel, don't turn off. And the web page was there. I don't comment on how the other friar look at me, but this is another topic. But that was homemade. Who is self-hosting a web server today? We can have for free. You can have your email for free on Gmail. But they own us. There ain't such thing as a free lunch. If you don't pay, you are the product. The data that you are releasing, it's a value that has to pay the energy, the resource, the engineer that are working on the software that you are using on. Well, this changing in which the high level of technology produce a contraction of people, of number of people that can be free on internet, produce a concentration of that, and change forever the web. So we should be back in this, democratic, atomized internet world. Is it that possible? I don't know. I don't know also because there is another fact. You know, computer is a machine that arose in the World War II. The first computer, ENIAC, was used to calculate or to solve the partial differential equation of von Neumann. That kind of equation that can give you the shape of the lens that concentrate the explosion on plutonium and make the first bomb. Well, if you see what one of the first engineer that make ENIAC say, he said, wow, ENIAC is unbelievable. It can fix such kind of equation in 30 minutes. 3 minutes of calculation, 27 minutes to give the data to the computer. So the bottleneck was the human being. But that first computer was huge, big as this room. And the first kind of computer, the mainframe, was big computational system that was in one room. And that was the computerization of society in the 50s and in the 60s. Then happened the 70s. And if you remember how was the culture in the 70s, everything that was centralized was seen as bad. Power to people. We need to democratize things. This is what the counterculture of that time said. The counterculture in Silicon Valley would like to simply demolish the centralized computational system. And what they invent? The personal computer. And the personal computer is a computational power for each one of us. In the 70s was the laptop, the home computer. Then in the 80s, 90s was the laptop. Early 2000, half of the year of 2000, it was the smartphone. That is not anymore a personal computational system. It's an intimate computational system. Well, when I say that to my student at the university, they look at me with a face in which I can read boomer. They think I'm so old. And so I offer to them, okay, let's do an experiment. Do you have a smartphone? Yes, prof. Well, unlock the smartphone. Yes, profs. Pass to the people to your left. You can't? So it's intimate. We can say, if I can make it in a really provocative way, sorry for that, probably it's more intimate than your underwear. Okay? It's where is something that it's really you and your business. But AI come in the game. And now all this stuff are AI infused. But this stuff has not the computational power to run AI on board. And so we need a new centralized computational power that we call data center, in which the services are run. But this time, all the life that we have digitized will be in some way aspired, will be subtracted from our control and go in the control of the centralized computational system. This is the challenge. This is the new movement of the pendulum, in which this kind of starting dream of democratizing computer now be back and become one of the most centralized source of power of the 21st century. When I say that in that way to one of the big CIO of the big tech, he looked at me, smiled and said, sometimes it happens. Well, when you have some advantage, it happens. But this is something that now is knocking on our democracy. What we would like to do? Now that there is not anymore a lot of stuff in our pocket, because this device has now inside everything, from credit card, probably to the key of your car, to a lot of different things. Should all this stuff be the property of someone else? Be monopolized by the computational power of someone else? Well, this is the new book that is for coming in April, not in Spanish, but I'm talking to my editor. I'm joking. But, you know, it's computational power. It's not anymore a computing. It's computational power. And the problem of every constitutional system is to have a coexistence of different power in a way that is respecting the rule of law. This is the challenge now. Can we still dream something like that? Well, I spent the last week one day with Richard Stallman, that is the founder of, free software. He loved me, I love him. It's a wonderful person with a big heart. He said, in a non-suspicious time, a reality that now is the problem. We own the hardware. You pay 1,500 euro for this, but you just have a license on the software. And you don't own the software. And if you don't own the software, are you the owner of this stuff? Because we are in Europe, and Apple is fighting with the EU. And so I pay for hardware that has not such kind of function because they don't want. But I pay it. But it's not mine. Try to drive a Tesla. If someone upgrade or change the software, you are gone. It's your the Tesla? Well, probably the battery, yes. But without the software, it's not a car. And so this is a new challenging frontier, and it's not so easy to regulate. Because, we was really good in regulate traditional object that has a consistency and a duration in time. A gun. So I know that if I go to the Madrid airport, I cannot bring gun. But if this is something that is software defined, could be a tool or could be a weapon with a simple software upgrade. And in which way can we regulate it? In which way our Western democracy that arise after one of the bloodiest century, the last century, can contain such kind of transformation and make us able to coexist with this new wave of digital beings? Well, we know the noise of the collapse of Babel. Now it's time to build a different kind of city.
You were talking about regulation, how we are already late to a regulation that might have been interesting at some point, but there is a need, an opportunity to regulate everything that has to do with digital rights, which is something that you also talk about in your book. Actually, I want to connect this with a Spanish researcher, Rafael Yuste, who was here 3 months ago, also in an event like this. He talks about something, and he promotes the protection of neuro rights. And he talks about 5 of these rights: mental privacy, or fair access to the ability for increasing our neuronal capacity. Actually, we're going to open an exhibition about digital rights briefly, shortly here. And we are actually talking about basically the same thing, very similar matters. And I would like to know how you deal with all these. What kind of agenda or roadmap do you think that we should have? And if we should take this seriously, so this is not a concern, but something that we take care of. And so we can tackle this in an urgent way, this need that you identify in the book. And which is something that we see on the table right now everywhere.
Well, first of all, I'm so glad that a company like Telefonica is on the front line for that, That means that not because you are a company, you are like a Silicon Valley company. Point number 1. Okay. Point number 2. We need guardrails. There is a slogan that a lot of time people say, well, United States innovate, Europe regulate, China copy. Well, it's not true. I spent 1 year in United Nations Committee with some Chinese. They regulate. Try to ask what happened in Tiananmen Square to a Chinese AI. It's nothing. We are the son of a tragedy of the last century in which for a piece of data, your religion, we was able to kill 6 million of people. And we are said with AI Act, no more such kind of decision can be made on the human being in an automatic way. It's a threshold of human dignity. It's a threshold of human right. You are not your data. You have the right to not be judged by your data. In United States, also if the administration is saying that no regulation, the different states are regulating with a lot of, copycat of AI Act, but this is European proudness. Well, but what we have to recognize, that if there is no right, actually there is a right, and this is the strongest right. Try to negotiate with Instagram the term of use. You can't. If you like to be there, you have to accept the right of the strongest. And try to regulate the right to not be pushed by a technology in some kind of behavior that is not what you wish. There is a really sad page. There is this family from Belize. They are United States from Belize. And the mother is a super activist. And the son start to talk with a chatbot. And the chatbot ping him to commit suicide. It's terrible. And there is no regulation for that. Because the chatbot, as a paycheck, they can use it. And if you see the screenshot of what the chatbot say to the kids, it's unbelievable. It's something that if was made by a human being, he will be jailed. But now they can call it business. So do we have a cognitive right to know if there is a machine that has his own hands and is pinging on me to make some kind of behavior that I don't want? Do I have a cognitive right that is actually the last frontier of privacy, to have something inside me that cannot be accessed by reading data outside of me? Because, this smartphone produces something that we can define as the quantified self. And the real value of what is here is that a quantified self has a behavioral surplus that can be monetized to produce a changing in behavior. Well, I'm an ethicist. You say I'm a theologian. Actually, I teach philosophy in a university in Rome, but that is incidental. And, the problem is you have such kind of behavioral surplus. Is this bad or not? Well, the real ethical answer is it depends. Supposing that you have a worker on a workplace and you use the behavioral surplus to keep it safe during the work, to try to avoid some kind of mistake that can cause to him the life. Is that bad? Supposing that you have, for example, a diabetes patient and such kind of behavioral surplus help him to avoid some kind of food, help him to stitch to the insulin plan, you are saving his life. Is that bad? But if you make in a way that is not for the good of the patient with the consent of the patient, this is a really clear definition that is manipulation. So, should we move from a persuasion society to a manipulation society? Give me 1 second more on that because it could be mysterious. It's Aristotle's. He said that we are a strange species. We are not cat, easy to do, but a cat knows very well what he can eat and what can't. You can poison a cat, you don't eat it. We don't. I spent a lot of time in my school when I was kids drawing and painting red mushroom with white dots. Then at one point someone convinced me that it's better to not eat such kind of mushroom. Aristotle called that persuasion. I use the reason to convince you about something. It's persuasion if I tell you, if you have COVID, if you drink vinaigrette, is not helping you. it's persuasion, because the rational reason say that. But there is another way to change the behavior of people that is called manipulation. Well, advertise sometimes is manipulation. But we build the society on persuasion. We have school. At school, I don't want to manipulate you. I would like to persuade you. When I teach you physics, I don't want to manipulate you to avoid that you jump from the windows. I try to explain what happens when you fall down from a place. And then you can take your action. The power of someone, if we don't put such kind of right on place, is to transform the core element of our society from persuasion society to a manipulation society, to a manipulative society. Probably will be more efficient because someone can control everything. Is still happy? Is still a society that we desire to live in? Well, so we start the first decades of the century talking about the dream. We continue talking about the second decades of the century, talking about what the economy make to the dream. The third decades, this one, we are talking about geopolitics and politics. Digital and computation become a source of power, and the discussion is politics and geopolitics.
¿Y qué lugar ocupa ahí el...
And what is the place of humanism in all these? It's something that you dealt with in your previous book, The Digital Era, also in this last book. You actually have your part of your doctoral thesis is about the cyber concept. What is the position, the place for all these in this dilemma? How do you think that we're tackling this?
Well, why? What does it mean to be human is a topic. Because this is something that is before the answer. Well, because this kind of question arises every time that we have a change of age. There is a sentence of Hamlet in the Shakespeare piece that say, the time is out of joint. And the time is out of joint is something that Hamlet said when he discovered that someone killed the father in Denmark. And it felt that like something that go against the natural things, against nature. And this out of joint means this confusion, distress, and things like that. But this expression was used in the next century to describe what happened with the changing of age from medieval to Renaissance and modern age. There was a new land, Americas. There was a new religion, the Lutheran Reformation of the Church. There is a new science, Galileo and Newton. And the political power struggled to find a new composition. The big national powers arise. Well, today we can say the time is out of joint. There is a new land, China. In the way in which we know now, we never know China as a land of superpower. Someone is saying also the moon and Mars, but this is much more fictional. We have a new religion. What happened in Silicon Valley is a form of religion, TESCREAL, transhumanist, posthumanist, and things like that. We have new science. Now we discover drugs with AI. This year, the Nobel Prize was won by an AI. Last year, 2 Nobel Prizes was won by AI. It's a new science. And democracy is a little bit struggling. Well, it's a time of change. In this time of change, sea changes. What does it mean to be human has to be said again. And if in the medieval was the Imago Dei, the mirror of God, in the new age, we have to define the human rights that was the same that before, but founding on the new understanding of humans. And now we are struggling in the same way. When we enter in modernity, Grozio start to ask, ut si Deus non daretur, like if we don't have God. Now it's like if homo non daretur, like if there is no human. What does it mean to be human? What is the difference between a machine that is so powerful like an AI and a human being? this kind of new tools is simple a mirror that is pinging on us to answer to this core question, what does it mean to be human? And a society is something that has to respect the human and the human dignity. And if we are struggling to define what is the society, it's because we are struggling to define what does it mean to be human. And so the answer is not what is the place of humanism, but we need humanism. We need to define what does it mean to be human. You remember Leonardo, the man, to make a safe space for each of us to live in such kind of transformational time.
And we're about to close this dialogue, so we can give the floor to the audience as well. I wanted to read a brief paragraph from an article by a Spanish journalist who talks about these topics: technology, society, thinking, communication, which is Celia Rodriguez. She published this yesterday in El País. It's concerning that the wonderful possibility for open communication by the digital technologies became systemic harassment, bringing us far away from public positions. Only those with the hardest personalities can survive. And it's interesting to me when you mention computational democracy in your book, and how we came from suspicion to doubt, but not doubts based on rational things, but it's a kind of doubt that, if I am right with my interpretation, I think that has more to do with what Hannah Arendt used to say, which is lying constantly has an objective of not making people believe these lies, but of making people not believe absolutely anything at all. So that lack of reference in the institutions that can guarantee, that can contribute with that credibility, is what makes us suffer this crisis of the idea of democracy. So what is human? How do you think that we can act, and where, so we can rebuild and correct those breaches that we've suffered, and all those things that you mentioned in the book?
Well, the first thing is to answer to a question: what is the difference between something that functions and someone that exists? And this is the difference between us and the machine. Well, imagine that I project to you a duck and a hair dryer, a phone. Well, the shape is really similar. I can turn off the dryer and turn it on again. If I turn off the duck, we can just have a good dinner tonight. Well, this is because it's someone that exists. We are existing. We are not functioning. And this gives to us a unique condition that has to take care of. So the contour, the identity, the limit, the meanings of being humans is given by such kind of limited time of existence. The second thing is something that arises by a dialogue that happened on April 6, 1924, between Bergson and Einstein. During such kind of dialogue on time, Einstein was really tough with Bergson. Someone say that Bergson don't take it well, and because it was really influent, they not allowed Einstein to win the Nobel Prize on physics, but just on another subject. But what happened is that Einstein said the only time that exists is the miserable one. And Bergson say, well, we have a problem because we have a different kind of time. Imagine that we take music. You can divide the music in every single moment, in every single note. When you digitize music is what you do. Well, But when we hear music, what is given to us is not the single sequence of notes, but is something that arises only from the duration of the music. The duration is a quality that belongs to us. The same things works really well with pain. The experience of pain is something that is connected to duration. Well, a Turing machine that is made by a series of divided cells in which you operate on symbol as not duration, as not continuity, is a fragmentation of different moments. So fast, so speedy that we don't see it, but there is no duration. The nature of the human beings, it has to be connected to duration. What does it mean to be human is the duration. And because this duration, love is a form of duration. Suffering is a form of duration. What does it mean to have human right? To allow people to be free to love, to deny people the suffering, especially the unjustified one. And so what does it mean to be human is to take this quality that is not a quantity and to respect the quality and to allow such quality to be protected and express themselves inside a personal trajectory that we call social trajectory.
Ya para terminar,
And to close, just to finish, just one last question out of curiosity. Seeing all your career, your ability to write, to describe things, to describe all these changes in time. You've also worked a lot about these. I would like to know what you're working with right now, what your next book is going to be. I'm sure, and I really hope that we will be able to read it soon, but I would like to know what you're working on right now.
Well, actually, to write something like after days take me a little bit of time. And I take 1 year and counting to make the next one, but I would like to focus on this transformation that I draft to you, that computing now is computational power. And so to do that, I have to draft what does it mean power, that in Greek is kratos. And power is the ability to make that something happen. And if you translate compute, to compute from English is exactly that. But power is not only the ability to force you to do something. If you do without I'm forcing you, that's real power. And is also the power that is in violence. A lot of violence against women happen in this form, and is a psychological violence on the others. Well, such kind of machine are really able to do such kind of violence or power. But what we give as an answer to power, to kratos, ethos, ethics. So the book is starting to draft this idea of power and this idea of ethics as guardrail for power. And then he starts to ask to himself, what does it mean that there is a power in technology? What does it mean that there is an ethics in technology? Then it moved to computation, and let's see how computation become the power, because become the power to shape society with algorithm and computational stuff. And it's finishing on this idea of ethics of technology and ethics of computational power. I finished the book 2 weeks ago. Should be out on April in Italian. I need probably to adjust a little bit because I write too much, and you know the editor, how they are. No, too much, too costly, no one will buy it. And so it will be a little bit slimmer, not so much, I hope. But in April, is forthcoming in April. And I think that is the third decade, the one that is missing here. But we need to spend at least and a half of these decades. So the first decade is the dream, the second decade is the collapse. The third decade is the decades of the power and ethics and the fighting among them to maintain such kind of computing power compatible with our society. Personally speaking, I don't want to lose our democracy. I'm ready to lose, my key and my credit card. I don't have one, but just to say, to put inside that. But democracy, something that see my grandfather fight for that. I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose the huge amount of blood that we lose in the last century to guarantee a space that give us peace and prosperity. So I hope that the book will serve to give an awareness that allow us to build some kind of guardrail for that.
Seguro que sí, que nos ayuda a tomar.
I'm sure it's going to be like that. Thank you very much.
Tenemos un tiempo ahora.
We have some time left for a few questions maybe, or any comments from the audience. Over there.
Buenas tardes, no sé si lo puede traducir directamente.
Good afternoon. Congratulations for this session. It's been amazing. We tried to follow everything you were saying. I wasn't really able to. And my question is, I don't really understand what you meant at the end of your speech by computational speech. And what is the value for you versus humanism, or what's left from humanism? And my question is, you talk about the collapse of Babel in your book. The story of the Babel Tower is in the Genesis book. And when they talk about the punishment from God to humans because they wanted to be like God, it gives them the possibility to or punish them with a multiplicity of languages, or that's the official story. And my question is, at the end of the day, is this a fight that we are living now, where we fight, there's a fight between computational power and God? Because you quoted Peter Thiel, and so we are actually going back to these theories, which are a little strange, but what is it that we're challenging in the end? What God and what demon are fighting in these times that we are living? Is it computational power, artificial intelligence, out of control against God himself, or according to you it would be against the human being? I don't know if you can clarify that for me. I'm sorry if the question is a bit confusing, but
well, first of all, thank you. There is all the first chapter here to describe that when I use the Babel Tower, I'm not referring to God. So all the question about God in your question is not here. It's really, really human. And what I'm using of the Babel Tower is that kind of reading that in the Bible is known as wisdom, sapienza. And that is a sort of, like, let's just say, the most lay teaching in the Bible, and this is where faith and reason can work together. So the Babel Tower is simple, a human project that to be satisfied need to sacrifice other humans for the idea. Is the perfect images of an ideology. It's not something that is related to God and punishment of God. So there is no fear for God in what we are saying, and it's much more philosophical than not theological. Okay, I use the images of Babel because it's an images that belong to, the core elements of our culture. If I say Babel, everyone understands the Tower of Babel, and there's something that is collapsed, where there was a dream of man's that was not working. But I'm not focusing on God, punishment, or other things. It's simple, the failing of the human project when a human project is based on not realistic ground. This is the sense of that. And the title, I find the title, you know, a little bit sexy, but that's my perspective. And if you question that, it works because it may produce curiosity. Jumping back, so I close the things of God because are not here. Coming back to Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel 2 weeks ago, or probably 1 month ago, wrote a really long essay on a journal that is called First Things. There is a journal that is the most influential journal for religious conservative in the United States. And the title was The Antichrist. So I'm not scared, I'm not talking about God, but I'm seeing that a venture capitalist that build up a lot of tech company feel the needs of use religious language to describe the direction of the new society. Oh, that's interesting. Is it Peter Thiel having a conversion? I don't know. But if Peter Thiel is talking of an apocalyptic fight, of something that can produce the destroying of everything, I have the feeling that we have to watch at that because probably it's not real, but could have a really bad consequence. And so this is the reason why this new religious language that arises from the Silicon Valley is so interesting. And it's not a matter of fate, angel, demon, and things like that, but it's a matter of, you know, wow, before was not like that. Why now is like that? What's going on? Let's investigate that.
Sí, okay.
Buenas noches, muchísimas.
Good evening. Thank you very much for making us think. I'm a psychoanalyst, and listening you here, well, I'm pretty much your same age, and our biggest concern is the children and the youth. If you were having a dialogue with children, with teenagers, how would you connect with them? With what ideas would you try to make them think?
Well, first of all, I see a really different reaction to digital space in the youngest children that we have now. They seem to have a relationship with the digital social network in a really different way. It's much more dangerous for them, the chatbots, than not the social network. They look at Facebook like something for all elderly. I'm an elderly for them. Maybe TikTok, but not so much. But there is something that I'm using to tell them that is my personal scaring, you know. I start with a personal story. When I was young, I was used to love to play soccer. I go in the oratory, in the field behind the church, with all my Boy Scouts. I was in the Boy Scouts, and we start to play soccer. And it was a Salesian place. And there is a Don Bosco statues in one place with an hand in that way. Can you imagine 30 kids with a ball and a statue with hands in that way? The real win of the game was to hit the hands of Don Bosco. So to make short a long story, one day we broke that hand. And the Salesian took me and teach me how to make cement and how to fix the hand. If it happened now, someone make a picture, make a movie, make a reel, publish on the internet, and you can Google me, Paolo Benanti is coming to Telefonica, and you see the destroyer of Salesian statues. Well, we are producing on ourselves digital tattoos that no one can remove from us. So be careful, because the stupid things that you can do tonight can remain your identity for the rest of the life. And I'm really sorry for that, because I was free to make my stupid stuff. Of course, this is a joke, with a lot of freedom that they don't have. because there is always someone that is making picture, posting picture, making things like that. And it's a cage. We condemned them to a digital prison that we don't have it when we was kid. I'm sorry for that. I don't want to teach them ethics. I'm sorry for that. And when they feel that, the dialogue starts. And they start to say things that are much more deeper than how I can imagine before. And I have to tell that they are suffering of this. And what these means are producing to them is the lack of friends. They feel themselves alone. And also the amount of time that they need with psychologists that is rising up. There are some studies that connect to the time that they spend on the screens. So, but this is not their problem. It's the missing of an adult generation that can help them to come out from that. We are probably lacking the energy to offer them alternative. This is really, sexy and suadent. It's made on purpose to be fancy. They spend a lot of money on the best engineer to make it fancy. So between a parents that tell, read a book, and the money that was spent to make it fancy, there is no game. But we need to make an alliance among us to try to define new way to give to them some kind of, alternative to not be closed in this invisible but super powerful cage.
Paolo, how you doing? Good. My name is Julius Caesar. First of all, I'm completely astonished about the fact that you made us think. And thank you so much for your wisdom and for every single word that you've shared with us. I wish I had the cognitive power. It's been a long day, definitely for work, but I wish I had a cognitive power for understanding every single thing that you've been saying. Now these words come from a young adult in their 30s. He's in the film industry and really passionate about cinematography. And I had the pleasure a few minutes ago realizing how good you intertwine between theology, philosophy, neuroscience. It's crazy. And then one question comes up regarding humanity. And then one thing comes to me about impermanence, about time perception, about how little is time, perhaps, for one individual. And then regarding this question about humanity and children, how can we counterattack this digital transformation for children, And I would love to dive into your brain about how bullish you are right now about 4 virtues about Aristotle, about justice, wisdom, temperance, and one extra one that I don't remember. Why? Because me as a young adult, as an optimist, and as a mentor, as well as a teacher, I believe that it's our responsibility for the upcoming kids, which probably right now are 5, 10 years old, and they're probably gonna develop one huge intellectuality, man. That's easy peasy for them. It's gonna be easy peasy for them in probably 5 to 10 years. But what about humanity? What about the wisdom, It's not about knowledge, but about wisdom. How bullish you are about these 4 virtues from Aristotle and the current situation from the digital. Thank you.
Well, a way to answer to your question is to try to find what is not possible to get through digitals, okay? I give to you all the digital means, everything that you can imagine. And let me do this question. How is the smell of lemons? Can you feel the smell of lemons with digital means? So there are quality of human experience that cannot be digitized. This is the direction of the answer to your question. And only if we are back to that, only if we are able to bring back all this kind of experience that we can collectively call the smell of lemons, we are able to be back to the answer to your question and finding back the core element that we need.
Dos intervenciones más. Bueno, tenemos 3 pedidas. Terminamos con estas 3 para terminar en tiempo.
2 last questions.
Me ha encantado la charla, muy chula.
Thank you for this. When you mentioned the PayPal mafia, they have been isolated from society in a way, and they've been able to rebuild something new, to build a new system that, in my opinion, and probably many other people's as well, left many people out. And probably I'm being naive, but as part of the Generation Z, for these people who have been left out, is there a way for them to go out of this new system so we can build something together with them? Because if you think about this, with all the data that this AI has been built with, we can reach the capacity of a data center or maybe 2. Is there a reason to have new motivation, to be excited again, and a way to escape this system that is being built and maybe create something based on collaboration? Or is this a battle we've already lost and this is already established and this is the way it's going to be?
Well, what you said is my dream. I hope it happens. What is the difficult to make it happen? That all the digital product that are coming to us has just one goal: to remove the friction. Try to find a taxi without an app. Are you free? Are you free? Are you free? Try to find a restaurant without an app. Do you know a good restaurant around here? Or try to find, it's something that needs a friction. These digital means make it smoothless and are so attractive because you can remove the friction. And the fighting is against this no friction experience, and we have to find the brave to go in the friction direction. Probably life is something that takes sense when you have friction. It's like, matches. When you make friction, it turn it on, it light on. But this is something that you cannot convince someone to do it. Usually the older generation give us a witness that it makes sense. But these digital means try to change it, and the non-friction experience are a huge attractive, and is something that is working like opium for a generation. What heroin did for the generation of the 70s, they simply shut down the social protest with this effect. Now probably is made by digital means. And probably is made also on purpose for some geopolitical reason, It's strong what I'm telling to you, but I think it's not so far from the truth. If you see TikTok, typical app for your generation, TikTok is owned by ByteDance. And ByteDance has the same app for Chinese market, then the name is Dengyu. That is not thank you, say in a bad way, but it's a name of another app. The app are the same. TikTok, that is for the Western market, is promoting the influencer. Someone that make crazy stuff and really strange things. Dengyu is made to promote STEM, laureate, public good, and other things. So they know that the app has a power, and they use the frictionless power, the computational power, in one direction to drive in a direction that is not empowering the society or the changing, on another way to empowering what they think is good. And so this is the frontier. If a generation don't say stop, unplug us from frictionless, that do not mean to not use digital means, but to accept that there are friction experience, there are the core experience of the human beings. And I think that every mother knows at least one friction experience, that is to give the light to a new boy or a new girl, that make a lot of sense, but is with a lot of pain. And so in some way, someone convinced us that we have to make frictionless experience. And I think around this topic is one of the problems of what you're saying.
Buenas noches. Gracias.
Good evening. Thank you for all these reflections. About the title of the book, I want to keep the word collapse. It's a word that has also been used recently by the person who received the Príncipe de Asturias Award, Bill Dunham. Probably you know him. And he was saying that he believes that we are about to fall in a collapse, and that he was expecting that collapse to happen shortly. So I also want to ask you if, apart from the title of the book, if you also think that we are about to suffer this collapse, and if you are maybe hoping for that collapse in a way. And also about artificial intelligence, since you are an expert in ethics, how do you feel about the fact that humanity used to live life in the hands of God, and now we're living our lives in the hands of artificial intelligence? How do you feel about that?
Question is really easy. The Italian title was Crollo, and the Spanish translator suggests Collapso. I don't was so near to... I know him very well, I love him, but my intention was not to go in the direction of societal collapse. And the Italian is less, it's much more structural and less, general. But yes, we can talk about collapsing of some kind of social structure, of social contract. In which way? I'm not waiting, I'm not desiring, I'm not analyzing it, but the effect of the digital social network on the second decades was a collapsing of social contract. You know, what is social contract? Coming here, I jump on a plane that was broken. This is the reason why I arrived in Delhi. But I was really sure that when they say we can fly it, they fix it. Then the pilot was trained to fly such kind of flight. Then the tire was really well in a good position and things like that. This is the social contract. I found here water and I drink without asking to myself, will be good or not? Because this is this idea of, what I can expect from other in society. If you see what happened with the digital social network during the COVID pandemic, when they start to monetize, some fighting against the vaccination. And we have to pay to convince people to get vaccine and to save the situation. So they start to consume the social contract. You don't believe anymore to medicine and doctor, and monetizing it. And the pollution was this kind of societal conflict that we live today. Could this be a collapse of the social contract? For sure. That is not a collapse of society. We have to build a new social contract. We have to build something that allows me to trust of the other, to build a society that is stable to the changing of the challenging of time. In that sense, collapse makes sense. Coming back to AI, there is a lot of narrative now on AI. Yes, of course, we could treat AI as an oracle, and we put as a little divinity. But the real limitation now is that the maximum amount of time in which an AI can make a task with 80 99% of correct is 26 minutes. So we are so really far to have this super AI entity that will conquer on us. This does not mean that we could be stupid enough to allow such kind of unstable system to take really serious decision. But this is human stupidity and not artificial intelligence. But this is an old problem on the surface of the earth. But thank you very much. You point the nail on the cube on a challenge that can bring to collapse if we make non-intelligent things in a human way. Thank you.
The last one.
Hi, Paolo. I am Daniel. First of all, I love this interview. You talk about the power of technology and how it can manipulate the society that we are living today. But where we should put the limits, who must put the limits, and where is our liberty when they, I don't know, the president or the founder of ChatGPT or anything, put limits to our way to think, express things in their platforms and things. And that's all.
Well, it's not an easy question to finish, but the problem of these means are that they are digital. And because they are digital, they can move around the globe and they don't know barrier, frontier, nationality and things like that. If you look at what's happening with Signal and Telegram, for example, every time that law enforcement ask some data to the company because they are in United Arab Emirates, they receive a white fax without no info. Because the problem is we can make a law, for example in Spain, that say that you cannot use AI for that. But if the AI run in a server that is outside of Spain, how can you enforce it? How can you control it? Well, this is the figure of the kind of problem that humanity is facing to regulate AI. We are trying with United Nations to have a global regulation. But, and here is the problem, we are in a really divided world now. And if you hear how much of pressure is put on the United Nations, we have war, we have conflict, so it's not an easy time. But we have to keep hope high, because, you know, human beings at the end of the day will find some way to get by. The problem is especially for not to business use, but to business to customer. So, but this is an old problem, you know. If I have a digital bullying on a social network, we cannot force company to remove such kind of images. And I find really unjust that for someone is 1 day, for someone is 1 month. This is not justice. This is an abuse of power of a company that decide to not be under the law. And no one should be above the law. So we have to bring back a system that is able to make them citizen. Other ways we have elements that are more or outside of the citizen and are more powerful in some case of some status. And so it's a challenge. There is not an easy solution, but we have to rise up the awareness to produce a changing in society. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Paolo. Muchas gracias por...
Thank you very much, Paolo. Thank you for being here, for making the effort to come all the way here, to be with us, to show us your book, and to make us think about many things that are key and essential for all of us as a society. Thank you very much, and welcome. We hope we'll have you back here for your new book. Thank you very much.